Thank you everyone for attending. My name is Adam Skelly. I'm the current president of Penn Jersey Pool and Spa Association. And tonight we have with us Lisa Segan, Jeremy Hasbrook, Jeff McGalliard, and Dominic Mondane. He keeps jumping out, but thank you all for attending. Tonight we're going to talk about reopening Pennsylvania mostly. And if you guys have any questions, there's a question and answer thing down at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to text in or put any comments in that you guys have. Currently, we're going to introduce our panel to you. So we'll start with Jeremy Hasbrook. If you could.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Oh, yeah, sorry. We're going to start with Jeremy Hasbrook. Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself, Jeremy.
Thanks, everybody. Jeremy Hasbrook, Hasbrook Pool and Spa. I am the secretary for Penn Jersey, and I have no answers about anything. So that's not true. I think I have a lot of opinions about what's going on here, and if you're interested in hearing any of that, that's what I got. I can't hear. Jeff?
Jeff McGalliard.
I'm Jeff McGalliard. I'm with Premier Pools and Spas. I'm a board member for Penn Jersey. I've been a board member for the NESPA, past presidents of NESPA, served on the technical committee and council for APSP or PHTA now. And like Jeremy, I've got my opinions and maybe we'll give an opinion about something that with the questions that are asked.
Lisa Segan.
I'm Lisa Segan. I'm with Pool Corp, and like everyone else, I also have opinions.
And then Dom from NESPA.
Hi, I'm Dominic Mundy. I'm the executive director of the Northeast Spa and Pool Association, and I am not a pool builder, but I am here, or service professional, but I'm here to offer any insight I can from where I sit at the region level as far as looking at how opening the industry and economies are going around the region and other states, as well as what we know is happening in Pennsylvania. So happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you guys to all of our panelists. So this will be about an hour long. If you guys have any questions, again, put it in your question and answer. So basically, we're going to start off with Governor Wolf in Pennsylvania announced that starting tomorrow, we were allowed to do construction, and we will be able to do it within the CDC guidelines, which they've posted. I'm sure we can share a link if anybody doesn't have them. Currently, there's only 4 people allowed on a job site at one time. And do you guys have anything more to say about that, Jeff or Jeremy or Lisa, about how we're gonna do our work?
Well, I'll start. It says there's only 4 people allowed. We talked about it. You're supposed to follow that as close as possible. I know when they're shooting a pool, it's going to take more than 4 people usually on the job site. But again, because they're being spaced out, they're keeping, they're wearing their mask, they have their gloves on, they're keeping their distance, they have their 6 feet distance and everything like that. That seems to be working out. I just saw they just shot a pool on Tuesday for us, and everybody had their mask and they were doing what they were supposed to, as far as keeping their mask and keeping their distance and everything. And but you really should try to follow the 4 people if possible.
I'll go. So some of this is up to interpretation, very little bit of it, but one of the biggest things here is that you should have in your safety guidelines, job site specific precautionary measures. So if you have a job site where you know you have to have more than 4 people, it should be written somewhere in your safety program what precautions you're taking. So one of the biggest issues that some companies are going to have is you're going to have to identify a pandemic safety officer in your company. So if you're out shooting a pool, you're out doing a job, someone on that crew should be assigned a pandemic officer, making sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing on the job site. Sanitation, wiping down trucks. If you're going to send more than 2 people in a truck, the truck should be clean and wiped down after each use. There is going to be enforcement, and the local authorities are going to be enforcing, especially when the neighbor calls and says there's 20 people in my neighbor's backyard. They're going to show up, and they're going to make sure that you know what you're doing. If you have to have more than 4 people on that job site, have your written plan in place. Job site specific is what it reads. So that's real important. It also says staggering your subs. Make sure that's part of your protocol. So you don't have your electrician and your plumber on site at the same time. You're gonna break the 4 people. Make sure you're staggering your subcontractors. That's also another big. That's probably the biggest one we're gonna have, is making sure that our subs aren't showing up at the same time. And then having that in place on our safety procedures, a written plan of that action. There's a lot of stuff that came out April 19th. In that written plan from April 19th, it says on the new plan that just came out to us yesterday that we're to still follow the April 19th plan moving forward. So once they open up our job sites, we still have to follow all of the guidelines set forth in the April 19th plan.
Yeah.
If you can't do it, you should have a real good reason why you can't do it if the authorities show up. They're threatening some serious stuff on us. So I'm sure that's going to raise a bunch of questions. I'll stop talking now.
No need to stop, but does anybody else have anything else to add to that?
And the most important thing is obviously to check with the municipality you're working in. I mean, it could be different from township to township, county to county. So just make sure you know what they're expecting of you when you're working in different municipalities, because it is enforced on the local level, which means the local level is going to be the one ultimately setting the guidelines. And according to the governor, they can make it more stringent. So you definitely want to know what you're working with before you get in there and have guys on the site and end up with some problems.
Yeah, those local officials that are doing the enforcement are going to also have interpretation. Even if they don't have their own more stringent rules, they're going to have interpretations. You also have the opportunity to sort of ask for some forgiveness ahead of time if there's a site-specific issue like Jeremy described that you can document. I mean, even in the four-person limit part of the guidance, there are some exceptions for it's not inclusive of delivery persons, code inspectors, or similar people requiring temporary access, right? So you're talking about shooting a pool, or you're talking about doing something where you're getting a delivery. You know, the truck driver doesn't count probably. He's only there for a certain amount of time, or certain other techs that are there to only do a specific thing for the discharge of material probably don't count against that 4. But to Jeremy's point, that's only true if you document it, if you communicate it, if you make sure everybody on site understands what's happening. So there are opportunities to continue to work smartly, but you know, creatively within the guidance.
Okay. So currently we have a question about Legionnaire's disease and COVID-19 in commercial swimming pools. Does anybody have any input on that currently? If we're going to be able to open, or how we'll be able to maintain it? And do you feel like water runoff could be a problem?
That's a
Question and answers.
I can share a little bit that I don't know about water runoff, but in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut so far, and I haven't seen anything specifically from the Pennsylvania Department of Health, but it's reasonable to think they would follow suit or could be easily convinced to do so, that all of the commercial pools that are closed for public use right now are still being directed to maintain their systems and their water. certain way, both so that if they do open, they're ready to go, but also for the greater public health potential of uncirculated, untreated, unsanitized water being a breeding ground for mosquitoes and other things like that. So the departments of health are either have or are in those other states working on specific language or direction that CPOs are essential workers, that water maintenance is important. And I would hope that even if they don't open the pools, that PA follows suit saying that these bodies of water need to be maintained.
I've got a question here. This focus has been on PA. I'm curious, is anyone doing any work in New Jersey? And what are the procedures that they have in place? Dom, you got something for that?
New Jersey is a little different than PA. They haven't agreed yet to open up new construction. What they have done when they did their construction restrictions was say that ongoing work or work that was already underway was the language they used could be continued, provided, and their thing was a 5-person crew for residential work, and then obviously following the other guidelines. The challenge is it's been 4 or 5 weeks now since that's been in effect. Feels like it's been 4 or 5 years since that's been in effect. I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels that way, but it's been a few weeks and it's time to get new construction underway. So the fact that they have allowed the same sort of crew size limitations and the same sort of workplace safety measures as requirements is exactly where we as an association are kind of leveraging in New Jersey to get them to open up new construction as PA has. And make no bones about it, the fact that Pennsylvania, as restrictive as they were out of the chute, the fact that they're opening up May 1st is a huge precedent that I hope is going to help the industry in New Jersey and ultimately New York get back to building new pools. And we're doing advocacy work obviously to that end. But if you're working in New Jersey, you absolutely can continue existing work. We talked to some code officials. We talked to the Department of Consumer Affairs about how local code offices were being advised as to what work underway means. And they don't have official guidance, but conversationally they have said that if a project is permitted, that job from their perspective is underway. And I think that's an important distinction because I think initially a lot of folks thought that you had to have a shovel in the ground already. And if it's, as Jeremy said, as Lisa said, contact your local building officials. But if their opinion is congruent with conversations we've had with the state, projects that are already permitted, even if you haven't started the construction work, should be able to continue in New Jersey. But we still need to get to a point where new pools can be built, especially because if you're saying that crews of a certain size can work, what's the difference if they're building a new pool or finishing an existing pool? It's equally as safe to do that.
To follow up on what Dom and Lisa were saying, check with your local municipalities in PA in particular. I know some of them are still doing, you have to mail the permit in. Some of them do have a drop box that you can drop them off. But anybody we've called, any of the townships I've been in contact with, they still are not allowing anybody to come into the township office. So check locally with your municipalities and see how they're handling issuing and accepting permits and everything.
Yeah, a lot of things are going to be locally based. So find out where you're at, where you're working. It's going to be very important for you to do that. Don't assume just because they're opening up construction in Pennsylvania that townships are going to allow you to work. I talked to a township inspector today, and they're not going, this is another municipality in Pennsylvania, they're going on the 8th. They're not next week. They're not opening up construction at this township till the 8th. So just because Pennsylvania says it's okay, local townships have their own thing going on. And the reason they're saying that is because they want their safety protocols in place before you start rushing the door trying to get permits. They have to bring everyone back to work. A lot of people aren't working right now. And in order to make us efficient as a community, they have to start bringing people back to work. And that's what's going on out there right now. And that just came into me this afternoon.
I think a big thing is that as we go back to work, because a lot of people haven't been working over the last 6 to 8 weeks or so, is that a lot of things are different. Obviously, we've never really, I mean, not everybody, but a good portion of us haven't worked with masks. We haven't had to worry about going into stores or distributors with masks or limiting the amount of people or doing like a curbside pickup, which most people are used to walking into, for example, like our tile showrooms and just walking in. That's not the case right now. So a lot of things are different than what you're used to and what people are used to. So it's just, there's a lot of adapting, and everybody's kind of learning together. Nobody had a rule book on this. Nobody expected this to happen. So just understand that there's a big change from the normal that we're all used to. So as you go back, just understand that things are kind of changing. They're very fluid by the day. So, and even townships, as they get going, are probably going to have changes from day to day, just based on the experiences and the things they come in contact with. They may go out to a job site and see something and be like, yeah, I don't want to see that again. And all of a sudden it becomes a rule. So just understand that on a day-to-day basis, things could be different, especially, like I said, for example, going to a distributor, you guys are used to walking in, standing at the counter, talking to people. That's not the case right now. So we're just coming back to a very different lifestyle than we've been used to for our entire careers. And hopefully, once we get through this, it'll be something that we never have to experience again. But for the meantime, just a lot of understanding on the supply side, on the construction side, just understanding that this is going to be a changing situation day to day.
And that's an A+ comment from Lisa, because the corollary to that is, Governor Murphy said today, I'm opening parks and golf courses. And by the way, if I see crowds at the parks and golf courses hanging out, I'm just going to close them again on Monday. Wolf has said similar sort of things, and it's a little frustrating because it sounds like threats, right? But the point is, if the industry goes back to work and does so responsibly based on guidelines that are out there and can figure that out, we're good to go. If too many people, there's always going to be a few bad actors, but if too many people throw caution to the wind and go back to some version of business as usual that is contrary to the normal we're in at the moment. And I agree, it's probably temporary. I don't think I'm not in the camp that this is the rest of our lives. This is just right now. But if we take advantage of the situation, it could lead to, again, a rolling back. I don't think anybody wants to see that.
Dom, I see there's a question, and I'd like to ask the same thing for Pennsylvania and New Jersey about allowing the pool stores to be open, like the Walmarts, Lowe's, Home Depot, and places like that are open. What's the feeling on the pool retail stores opening?
Here's the hard answer to that question, Jeff, is those of us in the industry find the argument so clear it's hard to believe that it hasn't landed, and that is that that broad retail category that's been open as far as home improvement and home hardware stores should capture pool supply stores. It should capture other types of sort of niche home improvement stores. You couple that with the fact that it's agreed upon that maintaining pool water is essential. If the businesses that maintain the pools are essential, and if water quality is deemed a public health hazard if it's not maintained, the logic completely falls apart to say that you can't sell the products that people need to do the thing you're saying is essential for public health. And yet we have seen municipality to municipality some variation on who's allowed to be open and who's not. It doesn't make sense to anybody who I've talked to about it. PHTA and NESPA are both engaged with government affairs professionals in Harrisburg to make those arguments. We pushed a letter out a few days ago, sort of summarizing all of those points, seeking clarification. We know that some stores have been allowed, and I know in some cases it's chain stores versus mom and pops, and that's only exacerbates the frustration, and I appreciate that. And it's the same now. New Jersey seems to be a little more tolerant for things like business modification to allow stores to stay open, curbside pickup, delivery. Whereas Pennsylvania has even said in certain cases, some of those things are not allowed. I don't have we have as solid a ground to stand on to open pool retail as we can. We just need to get that message received and get a blanket exemption for pool retailers. We just don't have it yet.
Thank you.
There's a question out there. It says, if you get a letter from your insurance company on the guidelines to open swimming pools, do you feel that they should contact the office to be sure that they're covered, that you cover yourself? I'm not going to answer that. You definitely need to contact your insurance company.
Yeah.
100%. Contact your insurance company. That'll be a good segue to my next thing. There's a lot of stuff going on out there with workman's comp. So I talked to my lawyer today, and the biggest thing I was told was to make sure that I have my new procedures listed for COVID-19 in my health and safety program at my company. People are going out on unemployment. If you want them to come back, they're sitting on unemployment saying they don't feel safe at work. You can't deny the unemployment if they say that they're not safe at work. Put this stuff, my lawyer said, put it in your safety program. Have a good safety program in place. It's very important right now to cover you. Call your insurance company, find out what they want you to have in your safety program. These are all good things to do. We should already have them in place, but if you don't, you really need to think about it. Go online. You can educate yourself about safety programs. You get a discount from your insurance company on your workman's comp. But right now, it's really important as a company to protect yourself. It's very important to protect yourself. There's a lot of lawsuits happening right now, and you don't need one. So that's the only answer I have for that question.
More fairly or unfairly, the way this has been, and there has to be a certain amount of understanding because no one's ever been through anything like this, but there is an awful lot of fluidity to this. Like, it's different from township to township, even though the rules are made by one person, how they're enforced. I've seen people who have exemptions who had problems doing work. Unfortunately, a lot of it depends on who you encounter, and I wish I could say there's one governing body to tell you the right and wrong answer for everything, but there's not. So whether unfortunately, you're going to have to make the best judgment call based on the information you have and do what's best for your business and your business plan and how you do things. But unfortunately, there is not one single governing body that has the answer to anything. And it's made a lot of confusion through this whole process, which, like I said, to the understanding, no one's ever been through anything like this, but it certainly adds challenges to it. So, at the end of the day, you need to really review your business plan, your job sites, what you're doing, and use the information you have as far as what's been given to you and make the best decision for you and your business.
And I think that's the main point we're trying to get through to everybody. Everybody's got to look at it, what they have to do for their own business. Follow the rules. If you feel that you need to follow the rules exactly, do that. We're not telling you one way. We're not telling you to do it the way we're talking about it. Follow the rules that are posted. Be safe. And just like Lisa said, do what you feel comfortable doing for your business and your business plan.
If I could add one point to that, it's we don't expect the governments to understand our industry specifically, or it's not just the pool industry, any other industry that has very specific ways. We get questions at NESPO all the time, like, well, okay, what about liner replacements? Or what if I'm just doing the coping? Or what if they're not going to answer those questions at that level. You need to read the information, take it on face value, and make good decisions. But you need to be responsible and document what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because as Jeremy said, you're talking about maybe nothing happening, or you might get a fine, or you might have an insurance issue, or you might end up in some sort of situation down the road that you need to defend your position. Just saying you did a thing is never as effective as actually documenting what you were doing, having sign-offs along the way. So if you feel that the work you're performing fits squarely within the guidelines put forth by the state, great. Make sure as our lawyers have told us numerous times, if you stood in front of a judge and had to defend it, could you? It doesn't mean that you have to be super cautious. It does mean you have to be reasonable in your approach. And again, good documentation is going to help you down the road in spades.
I saw there was a question earlier that somebody was asking about, I think it was stormwater runoff. I think it disappeared. So I think the stormwater management, again, if you've done and set up your stormwater management, your silt fences and your tire washes and everything like this that you're supposed to do anyway on jobs that require it, I think that should take care of, should handle the stormwater management. Again, you need to check it and make sure it's set up the way it needs to be and meets the requirements. They usually have to be inspected. Most of the townships are inspecting them once they're set up. So I'm not sure who asked that question, and it kind of disappeared. I saw it earlier. I hope that answered what they were wondering about.
It was asking if you could, basically, if Legionnaire's disease was possible
Okay.
stormwater runoff.
That's a tough one, Adam. I wouldn't be able to answer that. I wouldn't be able to answer that, and whether Legionnaires could form with stormwater runoff. I don't know, Lisa, Jeremy. I couldn't give an opinion on that.
I mean, I can jump in a little bit. I mean, if you're talking about stormwater runoff where it's puddling, there's all kinds of things that can form in that. I mean, that's a whole other, we can have a whole other webinar about that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in since it's a little quiet. So one of the guidelines under all construction activities, I'm not sure if anybody's, I know we put this out there. It's on NESPA's website. It's on Penn Jersey site. And there's basically a list of activities and how you're supposed to follow it under their guidelines. And one of them, and this is going to come to a shock to a lot of guys that are out there working, is if tools are to be shared by employees on the job site, they're supposed to be sanitized and cleaned between each use. These are just some of the little things that are going to be very difficult to do during a big job when you've got a lot of people on the job site. And this is where my opinion is going to jump in, which I don't like doing. But if you have someone get sick on your job site, and this is happening, I know this because I'm a consultant and I consult with a lot of pool companies, and there's someone on this right now that's happening. And if you want to speak up and share about it, your experience, you can type in so everyone can see it, that an employee got sick and now they're in a lawsuit. And did they get sick while they're at work? There's no way to prove it, but they are in the lawsuit because they felt that the company did not provide them the proper PPE. It's happening, and it's happening in our industry right now. And the person's here, so it's a member of Penn Jersey, and it's happening. So just be aware. I don't know. There's no other way for me to tell you. Have stuff in place. At least follow the minimum guidelines that are set forth by the state. You can always do more. And like Delisa's, not everybody can follow all this. Some of this stuff's really expensive, but at the end of the day, nobody's going to care how expensive it was if you didn't do something they told you to do. And that's what's tough. Make sure you read all the stuff that we're putting out there. That's why it's a good reason to be a member of the association. We provide you with all this material that you can have free and read it. It's really important that you know what you're talking about. And like Dom said, if you're sitting in front of a judge, can you defend yourself? If you can't, then you need to take that next step. And we can help you. We've a lot of people on this board, a lot of members here have set up safety departments. We know what we're talking about, and we can help you get all set up with that.
And let me say too, I was just talking with a group of association professionals about meeting planning, and it relates to this conversation in this. When you're setting those standards and company policies, and if you're doing it in a way to protect yourself, you're not just writing a safety plan, but you're writing policies around what you expect of your employees, and then you're having them initial that, right? So that, everybody knows that they received it. Don't necessarily think you're doing yourself a favor by going so far above and beyond. You think you're doing so much more than what the standards are, what the CDC is saying, or what the state is saying, because it's equally important that you follow through on it. So if you set a standard for yourself thinking that, well, I want to prove that I'm better than the rest, and I'm going to go above and beyond with cleaning frequency, sanitation schedules, buying tools for everybody so they all have their own stuff, everything like that. And then when push comes to shove, you can't maintain that over time. You can't you can't wipe the truck down every hour. You can't really buy enough tools so everybody has their own set of everything. You run the risk of falling out of compliance with your own agreed upon standards. And that can put you in as much trouble down the road in the event of a lawsuit like Jeremy's describing. You're better off, there's nothing wrong with going above the standard, but be careful how you put expectations on yourself and your business from a liability perspective.
At the end of the day, I mean, all of us want ourselves and our employees to be safe and healthy. So whatever we have to do to make that happen, there are unfortunately a lot of added expenses sometimes with that stuff. And right now it's unfortunately the cost of doing business. Sorry, my dog has a lot to say sometimes.
I will. Happy birthday, Lisa.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Today is Lisa's birthday. If everyone didn't know before, today's Lisa's birthday. So we will definitely wish her a happy birthday and hope she's doing well. And
Well, I certainly appreciate that.
thank you.
And Sandra Newman says she would gladly do a nanotechnology webinar on Legionnaires, viruses, and bacteria.
I think somebody's running a sales pitch.
Yeah.
And it's not really the appropriate forum, so I think it's time to stop.
Yep. Bye-bye.
There's a question in the comments here that came from Facebook, and I'm trying to read it right now. So the question is, the information being given on this forum, has it been documented from the state level in writing, or primarily is your interpretation of these executive orders based on verbal conversations with state officials? So there's definitely two halves to the conversation we're having. There's what's being shared publicly from the state as far as guidance informing the executive orders, and then we're definitely having some conversational back and forth sort of with our interpretations of those. There is a specific document that came out from the state of Pennsylvania on the reopening of construction, and it is linked on NESPA's website. I believe it's on the Penn Jersey page as well, and it was sent out in an email today to all of our Penn Jersey members that has what the state's guidance is. And Jeremy referred to that document a little bit. It's where the four-person crew with caveats is listed. It does describe for all construction what sort of the baseline standard is as far as, again, points that were brought up as far as tool sharing, social distancing. There's some good caveats in there, for example, like maintaining a 6-foot distance as long as it's safe to do so. There's some, which sounds simple, but it does, in my opinion, create some understanding that in construction, in order to be otherwise safe, you do need to sometimes get closer than 6 feet to somebody. Think about team lifting, or think about, you know, repositioning something that needs 2 people. But that you only should be close enough for those tasks. It also explains some rules about commercial construction, and I don't have those right in front of me, but I know there's probably people on the call and certainly people in the chapter that do commercial work as well, pool building for commercial properties. And there is also some commercial specific guidelines as well. So there is a lot in official documents, and then yes, we are having some conversational back and forth on top of that as far as how those things can be interpreted for our industry. So I would check the NESPA website, check your email for information that came out today, or the Penn Jersey website.
Just to add to commercial construction, again, enclosed projects or portions of enclosed projects may not permit more than four persons on a job site of 2,000 square feet or less. So if you're working on an indoor pool, if you're in a building of 2,000 square feet or less, technically you're only supposed to have 4 people on the job site also. You're allowed an additional person on an enclosed area, 1 additional person for each 500 square feet of square foot above 2,000 square feet at that time. And it says it includes all areas under roof and under active construction at that time. So that's part of for the commercial people.
Yeah, it also touches base on the written safety plan for each location. So if you're working on an indoor pool, a commercial indoor pool, site specific. Whenever we talk about safety and safety plans, it's always site specific. If you have a warehouse, anything like that, the safety plan should have the warehouse's address, emergency exits, things like that. And the same thing's going to go with if you're working on an indoor pool. What procedures do you have in place for that site? And when it comes to the commercial stuff, I don't think there's going to be any leeway on this. You're going to be under very high scrutiny when it comes to the commercial jobs because of that facility, I am sure, is under lockdown procedures. So bringing in subcontractors, it's going to be real important that you know what you're doing.
We're talking a lot about construction work because that's the thing that's becoming new. We touched on the retail challenges. I'd be curious to hear from Jeremy, Jeff, and Lisa a little bit about the other aspects of business operations that maybe you're making accommodations for, whether it's your internal office staff or something that is I'm wondering what the sales process looks like these days. You know, you're not spending as much time face-to-face with homeowners. Obviously, part and parcel with building new pools is signing new contracts. What are you guys and gals seeing or doing to help with, and you know, Lisa, as a distributor, this is relevant, right, for you as well as you're managing the sales process. How is that aspect of your business changing or adapting now that we're opening up more of the work in Pennsylvania?
Well, it's definitely a different environment than we're all kind of used to. Previously, contractors would be in and out of distribution centers constantly all day long, picking up supplies. As far as my personal company, we have a tile showroom that's open to the public. So we have a lot of contractors and builders who use our tile showroom as part of their sales process. At the current time, we have those closed. We offer an app that has our stuff, but unfortunately, websites, books, and literature is really the best we have to offer. I mean, if there's a sample, you know, if a homeowner's looking through there, if there's a tile sample they want, that's something we can certainly send you. But at the time, we're not letting people in our showroom. So that obviously hurts a lot of contractors that use that as a sales tool. So, you know, it's one of those adapt and overcome situations. So at the moment, that's not something that we have available to you, but you know, as a salesperson selling to a homeowner, use your resources, whether it's our app, whether it's a website, the literature, whoever stuff you use, whether it's me you're buying from or one of the many other great distributors in our market. So, you know, it's just a different situation. A lot of you are used to coming in and talking to the counter staff. That's not something that's really available at this time. So most of our orders are done over the phone or online. And that goes through, I would imagine most of the distributors, or if not all, in the market, because that's just a big change that we're all dealing with at the moment. So just realizing there's going to be a big change there. But, you know, we have to keep our employees and our staff healthy. So we are doing our best to accommodate everybody. And I'm sure as the homeowners just want to get their pools together, you know, we just, again, adapt and overcome.
We're doing virtual appointments, either Zoom, FaceTime. We've done a few phone conversations with people. DocuSign is what we've been using if they're signing a contract or anything. Again, as far as looking at samples and stuff, yeah, we've been sending them to the website. And, you know, trying to get them to look at that. If possible, we might run something out there and drop it off so they can see it. Our office, we have, I have my own separate office. It's actually my daughter runs our office manager. She has her own office. So we're separated there. We have our separation between us and everything. But usually, and we'll either Google Earth the property to take a look at the property and to be able to look at the property at that point. That's how we've been handling our new jobs.
So from my point of view, I'm a very small company and we do a lot of like high-end retail customers and everything. We've met a lot of new clients in the last couple of weeks, and everyone we've just asked to make sure that they're socially distanced and staying away from us. But everyone's so excited to see that somebody's on their property, so they're having a lot of trouble like keeping their distance from us. So how do you guys feel about that?
So we did we've got like a standard cut sheet that we send to all of our customers, and basically explaining our new policies. So they're well aware, and I can see if they've got the email. I can see if they opened it up and viewed it, and they're well aware of what we're trying to do as a company to protect our staff and our employees, and you know, our social distancing guidelines. You know, we also are opening up lines of communication a little better, so they know exactly when we're going to be on the property, so they know not to come outside, so they can help us practice our social distancing. And that's one of their biggest changes. I mean, we're a small business as well, and we've the same thing. A lot of new people, so I text message over to them, you know, the cut sheet so they can see it. You know, basically just describes what we're doing, and then it just asks for their help in doing it. So it works out. Some people don't understand. Some people there's kickback all over the place. Some people run right up to you and try to give you a hug. You know, it's difficult, and I understand that everyone's going through the same thing right now. So if you have any other questions about that, being honest with the customers, not everybody's on the same page with this, and that's the biggest thing. We all have to realize. So just letting them know how your company's reacting, as opposed to telling them when you get there, oh, you know, we're not shaking hands, thank you. Just shooting them a little thing so they know how to behave when you come to the property, so it's not an awkward conversation that you have to have every time you step onto their property, has helped us out a lot. That's it for me.
Yeah, no, any job I've been on, the customer's been very careful. They've had their PPPs on. I've had mine on. Most everybody's been keeping the 6 foot better when you're talking to them when you're in the yard. So I think some people are conscious of it. Again, with Jeremy, we've been telling people too that when we're out there, we're letting them know when we're going to be there. And letting them know that our people are going to be, keep their protection on, watch what they're doing, and just kind of follow the rules that have been set out.
And remember, I know everybody that's listening or will watch this later has a different feeling about where we are with this particular crisis outbreak, however you want to classify it. But what we're talking about is we're not judging opinions or where we are with this. This is about protecting you and your business and your employees, both from a health perspective and a liability perspective. Important to keep in perspective kind of what we're, how the frame with which we're presenting and discussing this information.
I know a lot of people feel uncomfortable about the PPE and the different things that we have to do. Like, I find it incredibly awkward to go to the food store and see everybody in a mask, and like, I'm not a fan. But as somebody once told me, I think we'd all feel pretty bad if something happened. So for the time being, it's just something we have to deal with. It's not going to last forever. Nothing lasts forever. So, they said you're going to encounter people who have different opinions on it. Some people have a real strong opinion as to this whole thing's a hoax, or, they don't believe in the PPE. And everyone's entitled to their opinion, whatever that may be. But just taking a stand on what you need to do to keep yourself and your employees safe is the most important thing. Because like I said, at the end of the day, we'd all feel pretty bad if something happened to ourselves, our families, or our employees as a result of our actions.
I agree with that. Thank you very much for saying that. So as far as going, does anybody else have any questions? Because I just want to get through it before we have to close out the meeting. So if you do, please fill out the question and answers or send a message on Facebook or whatever you can. We're online either way, and this is being recorded so that you guys can follow it in a further time. Okay, no more questions. Well, so we're roughly about an hour in. I want to thank everyone that attended. We really appreciate it. You guys can follow all of this information on Penn Jersey Pool and Spa Association, or I'm sure there's a link on our NESPA page. And thank you very much. I want to thank all of our panelists, Lisa Segan, Dominic Mondane, Jeff McGalliard, and Jeremy Hasbrook. If not, thank you, everyone. Please stay safe out there. Make sure your company's safe and everyone is keeping their distance and everyone's protecting themselves.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Adam.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everybody for being on.
Yes, thank you, everyone.